Welcome back to another episode on the podcast. I really heavily debated recording this and getting this episode out this week because it is Christmas for those who observe on Thursday, the day that this episode will be coming out. But I just wanted to do it. So here we are. If you are listening to the Rochelle Christian podcast, this is a year in review and a year ahead forecast for next year. I'm also recording on another podcast next week about a year ahead. So I'm going to cross post that. So it might be a little bit more in depth on that one. If you're listening to the Roof and Rubble, this is the same thing. It's a year in review and a year ahead, but you're getting a little bit more of the back end sort of stories of more so kind of what I learned in my dating life. I will be touching on it on the main podcast, but you're going to get more of the detailed stories, I suppose, over on the Roof and Rubble, because that is where we are real, raw, unfiltered, all of the things. You're getting my 6'3" life, very heavy over there. And so that's how this episode is going to work. Before we get into that, I want to say that Asher Design School will be starting January 21st. Now, the previous time I launched this, it kind of flopped. But I so believe in a transparency, being completely honest with you. Holistic Human Design Academy was my sort of signature program, and I really wanted an upgraded version of that. And so maybe the name change, whatever it was, but we are relaunching in January. So it's starting January 21st, and it's going to be a year-long exploration of the self. So all the things that we talk about, on the podcast and social media, it's really layered onto your specific chart. So we're going to be doing moon circles. We're really learning our chart through working with the transits, through, again, the full moons, the new moons, any major transits that are happening, while simultaneously sort of being a student of yourself and leaning into your chart. But it's so much more than just like the mental piece, the learning. It's really embodiment. And I think that the transits and learning with other people is so helpful in really embodying and bringing your chart into your system and not just intellectualizing it. Because I think a lot of us just learn all the information in our mind. We're doing our design, but we're not actually embodying our design. So that is the purpose of this program, this container. So all the information is down below. You can go over there and learn about the program. And starting January 21st. So all the things that are happening in 2026, you will have a very clear understanding of how it's impacting you specifically. So, okay. Here we go. Let's start with a year in review of 2025. Now, 2025 was really big. It was really intense. There was a lot going on. So many people felt it, all with the exception of Pluto that moved into Aquarius. I believe it was November of 2024 officially for its 20-year cycle in Aquarius. All of the outer planets moved signs. So this was a big piece of 2025. But what happened that makes 2025 really big and really, I think, internalized. I feel like 2025 brought us closer to ourselves. It stripped away all of the bullshit that's not working, all of the things that were confusing, although we felt really confused in 2025, but I think that's the point, right? It stripped away all of those things that it showed us what doesn't feel good, what doesn't work anymore. And it really brought us closer to our soul, our self, our values, stripped away the ego a little bit, which is sort of a lot of the work that I'm doing right now and really deeply understanding the ego, its purpose, and how we can transcend the ego, because the ego is what keeps us believing that we're separate from the whole. But we're not separate from the whole, right? So when we can put the ego aside and understand our connectedness, it really is a beautiful thing, and leading more towards sort of like in every moment, like who can I be? Who do I want to be in this moment, right? Who do I want to show up as? Because I truly believe that, of course, easier said than done, but I truly believe that we get to choose every moment who we're going to be, how we're going to show up as. So we started the year with Uranus retrograding in Taurus. And this was for all you Taurus and fixed signs out there, like when Uranus moved out of Taurus, oh my gosh, the relief, right? But the year started out with Uranus retrograding in Taurus. Now, for me, this is my 10th house. I'm a Leo rising. And this was so impactful because I literally quit my 9 to 5. It was actually 7 to 7, really, technically. No, 8 to 7, sorry. My 8 to 7, I was just like, I can't do this. My mental health is worth way more than working this many hours, not being with my kids, being unhappy. Like there were so many things that happened that I was like, this just does not work for me anymore. And so I quit my 9 to 5 and took 5 months to really just focus on this, focus on my family, really get clear on the direction I wanted to go in, all of those things. And so that was a really impactful transit for me personally. So we started out the year with Uranus stationing direct. That was also the time when all those airplane crashes were happening because Uranus rules the air, right? If we're looking at it from that way, and Uranus is shock, it's sudden truth, it's awakening, it's called the Great Awakener, right? And so that was all going on. In, let's see, May 24th. So March, actually, first in March, Neptune moved into Aries. And then in May, Saturn joined Neptune in Aries. And they both went retrograde and moved back into Pisces. Saturn went back into Pisces September 1st. Neptune went back into Pisces October 22nd. So that time, so for Saturn between May and September, and for Neptune between March and October, that time gave us a taste of what this Aries energy is going to feel like with Saturn and Neptune in Aries. Now, they're going to move together into Aries again. And we're going to get to it, why 2026 is so big. Maybe I'll leave that thought there and come back to it when we get to 2026. But they're going to be moving back into Aries together in 2026. And that hasn't happened in thousands. I think Pam Gregory originally said like 10,000 years, but I think it's been corrected to maybe a little bit less than that. But either way, a significant amount of time where these two planets are going to be at 0 degrees of Aries, which is the absolute starting point of the zodiac. So we got a little taste of what might be coming about with this energy, right? Like this is like the spiritual warrior. This is like, Saturn and Aries is, Saturn rules Capricorn and also Aquarius, right? Saturn is structures, systems, boundaries, time, like this 3D sort of time. And Neptune is illusion. It's your dream world. It's getting lost in other people. It's idealism, right? So it's kind of very different. This energy, Aries is the I am. Again, it's the starting point of the zodiac. It's our body. It's all of these things. And so with these two going into this energy together, it's going to feel, it's a fire sign, right? So it can feel like wanting to be really fast energy, but really neither of these two planets are very fast moving, right? And so it's going to be this sort of like push pull energy, but again, that spiritual warrior type energy. So really getting clear on what we're fighting for, what we're standing up for, what our beliefs are, what our values are, because it will be so easy, especially with Pluto hanging out over there in Aquarius, to get really confused on like our direction or just the noise. We'll say that the noise around us, because Aquarius is technology. And Pluto and Aquarius, the downside, the shadow side of Pluto and Aquarius is controlled by technology. And I think we're seeing a lot of that already with all the AI stuff. It's like we don't go on social media. You don't know what's a real video. There's bears and babies and all this random stuff. And it all looks so real. And even with news, right? With the news, like what's real and what's not. Like I stopped watching the news a long time ago, but I can see how, I still hear things from people. And it's like, I personally don't believe anything that comes out of the news. And that's just my choice and belief. But I'm of the mind that nobody should watch the news because it's all got an agenda, and it's very confusing. And so that is kind of the energy there. And then we had in July, Uranus went into Gemini. So for all you fixed signs, this felt a little bit like of a relief, which is interesting because from July, actually, literally, so from July until November, I was like the most disciplined, the most, just the most disciplined with my spiritual practice. I was meditating twice a day and I'm still meditating every single day. It looks a little bit different than it did then. I meditating twice a day. I wasn't drinking whatsoever. I was so emotionally stable and neutral, and that felt so good. And then in November, Uranus moved back into Taurus, shaking Taurus up. So again, think about, we've talked about this here before, but think about Uranus, which is again, the electrical impulses in the body. It's shock, it's truth, the Great Awakener in a sign. So it's very unpredictable, very unstable in a sign that is literally pure stability, like just craves stability, craves like those creature comforts, craves the material, and a big journey for anyone with prominent Taurus in their life. But Taurus itself, the lesson of Taurus is non-attachment, because Taurus rules the second house, which is our resources. It's ruled by Venus, right? So it can be very material. And that's the trap shadow side of Taurus, is to be very attached and very materialistic. And so the lesson through life, and Buddha is attached to Taurus, right? And I don't know if that was when he was born or whatever, but Buddha is attached to Taurus. And so that lesson of non-attachment is really, really huge for the Taurus, for myself. I know that I deal with that one too. But anyway, so Uranus went back into Taurus and it's just kind of shaking things up again. But when you think about any retrograding energy, first of all, it's internalized energy. Jesse Eckel said on here that I think it was on here on the podcast a couple years ago, we were doing monthly transit updates, but she had said that outer planets are sort of like retrograde energy in themselves because they're really slow moving, right? And so the truth or the information, the frequency, the message, the whatever word I'm looking for that we get from these outer planets really happens slowly over time. But when they're retrograde, it's really internalized energy. It really comes inside. And so a lot of this year has been these outer planets in retrograde. And so it's a lot of that. It's kind of like that pressure cooker energy, right? That analogy of the frog in a pot of boiling water. If you put a frog in water and put it on the stove and press, put it on to boil, it's not going to feel the gradual temperature shift until it's boiling and then the frog's dead, right? So that's sort of like the energy of these like outer planets, especially Pluto. It's really, really slow, but it gets to the point where you don't really notice it, but then it's so uncomfortable that you have to face it. And so this year has been a lot of these outer planets in retrograde. And when you think about it too, again, so they go over a sign. Let's take, for example, Uranus, right? It goes from 27 degrees of Taurus to, I can't actually remember what degree it was when it went retrograde. Let's see if I can find it really quick. To, why do I not see it on here? Oh, 27 degrees of Taurus to 1 degree of Gemini. So you think about those degrees. It goes over it the first time, and we're just kind of like have this little inkling that something's off, or we're just kind of a little bit of awareness is coming up during that time. And then it stations retrograde. Well, that retrograde motion itself is like the train, where it like the train comes to a stop and it's like it just kind of like shudders a little bit and then it stops. And there's this pause, and then we can feel it like it like shudders us a little bit, like getting back in the other direction, and then it moves. So retrograding energy is felt the most at that moment where it switches. And then we kind of like, especially outer planets, because they're in retrograde for so long, we kind of get used to the energy. And then again, when it slows and turns again, we'll feel that again. So the second time it passes now from 1 degree to 27 degrees, it's like the things that we noticed the first time are really coming up to be seen now. They kind of can't be ignored because you had a little whisper of them. You kind of like noticed it a little bit. And now it's like they're just kind of like poking at you and you're like, oh yeah, like that feels really uncomfortable. Like I don't like that, or whatever it is. And then when it stations direct again, so when it hits that 27 degrees of Taurus, it's going to station direct again and go back over that. And now it's an opportunity to do something different. We've had the whispers, we've seen it, and now it's like, what are you going to do about it? And we don't all choose to change. Change is really difficult. If we could all do it so easily, we would all be our best and highest version of ourselves, but the subconscious and the ego is really loud and life happens, and we sometimes choose comfort, and there is no shame in that. There's nothing wrong with that. And that's been a big lesson also of this year for me, has been to just like release the shame that I've held around a lot of things and just be like, this is just me, all parts of me, right? Because if you can't accept you, how can anyone else accept you, right? So I have to accept myself so hard and so fully that it's hard not to accept me, because I just am, right? That authenticity piece that I've been talking about a lot, right? So again, like getting really clear in your values. And then of course we had eclipse season. Venus was retrograde back in March. Mercury, of course, goes retrograde a few times a year. So this past Mercury retrograde in Scorpio was wildly intense. It was, it was a lot. Mercury is going to be retrograding in water signs between now and 2027. In 2027, it's going to be dipping in and out of air signs, but all of 2026 is going to be retrograding in water signs. And this is really having us notice our emotional patterns, our old habits, from childhood, from whatever, that are coming up that are wanting to be seen, right? Again, this is really asking for us to just slow down, right? Slow down, and allow ourselves the space and time to see what's coming up and not try and force anything. Mars was also retrograde back in January 6th, and Mars only goes retrograde every couple of years. So it will not be retrograde next year, but 2027, it will be retrograde. And, I think that's like the major things that happen in 2025. So again, I feel like for myself, 2025, although incredibly uncomfortable, really brought me closer to my truth. It was like, it had me facing parts of myself that I kind of thought were healed a little bit, that were painful and challenging, especially with Mercury retrograde. I noticed how so many of my patterns came up. I noticed what was mine, what wasn't mine, and really understanding my emotions as my like emotional guidance system and how the ego latches onto that has been really impactful as well. Understanding the need to balance the masculine and feminine, because if we lean too heavily in one or the other, I mean, I think we, in different ways, right? I want to say that we're technically, I feel like, dominant in one, right? Um, if we relate, or what's the word I'm looking for? Identify, I guess, with the feminine, we're going to be feminine in nature, but we really need the masculine. So there's so much to your chart that can really uh, speak to this, I guess. And that's also part of Astro Design School, is really getting familiar with those parts of your chart. But for me, as a Taurus stellium, my chart ruler is the sun, which is in Taurus. So I'm very Venusian, I'm very Plutonic in my chart, these two things. But having a Venusian sun, having a lot of that energy in my chart, is something that I never really allowed myself to lean into growing up, because I think it wasn't really valued. It was more like, do the thing, play the sports. I guess the masculine was more honored. And yet I've been doing, so To Be Magnetic is doing this like holiday challenge. I think it's called Magic. Ooh, maybe the Magic Challenge. I can't remember exactly what it's called, but it's been bringing us back through 0 to 21. It's in like stages, and rewiring and creating awareness, and sort of that like 3 to 5 or 18. No, so sorry, 5 to 13 age range. When I am diving into these DIs, deep imaginings, they're basically self hypnosis sessions. When I'm diving into these, I'm really coming back to this place where I was so in my feminine as a child. I would wear dresses. I would wear these, I used to call them clipper clapper shoes. They would just like little tap shoes, I guess. So you would walk around, they just like, and I felt like I was like grown, I would wear those things. And just like the things that I like to do were like very feminine. And somewhere along the way, I lost touch with that part of myself. And so like reconnecting with that feminine part of myself. Also over the last like couple years, I feel like I've dated people who have shown me how good it actually feels to be in my feminine and to allow the masculine to provide and to be in that energy. And I am reading the Queen's Code currently. Highly recommend. I think I'm like halfway through the book. But they talk about, in the beginning of the book, they talk about like frog farmers, which is basically women who turn princes to frogs and not the other way around, just from like various reasons. But anyway, it's a really beautiful and interesting book on like how we um criticize, or just, yeah, how we're just not in our flow, and how men and women are so different. The masculine and the feminine is so different in the way that our minds work. So it's just a really illuminating book, I guess. But so yeah, that happened. And then, so, okay, that was 2026, 2025. I also have a couple, let me see if I can find them real quick. So people have shared with me things that have, okay, so I just asked what people felt like they learned in 2025. One says, been in deep reflection the second half of the year. Have I actually manifested the life my soul wants versus what my ego wants? My current job has healed some massive wounds, and I'm grateful for that. So that is beautiful. And then I have another, let me see if I can find them real quick. I screenshotted them because I asked this question on Instagram a little while ago. Just some other lessons of 2025. Let's see. If I can't, I think one of them was around like manifestation as a lifestyle. Essentially, that wasn't exactly the words, but that manifestation is a lifestyle. Like it's not a one and done thing. It's not something that happens once and then you move on. Like it is like a continual, like, excuse me, continue like expanding our mind, doing the work and showing up in that capacity and like really being in that energy. That's like what manifestation is. It's not just it's not just a one and done thing. I don't think I can find it. And I screenshotted it for this specifically so that I can come in here and share. And I can't seem to find it. And I don't want to spend too much time here looking for it. So for those that commented on Instagram, I do apologize. I can't seem to find it. Okay, so that was 2026 again. Just so many lessons overall. And in okay, so 20 that was 2025. I keep saying 2026. My mind is in 2026. So 2026 is going to be fast, right? So 2025 had all of these outer planets moving, dipping in and out of signs. So they were all of them were at retrograde in moved back into the previous sign. So it was like the final, it was such a year of endings, right? It was a 9 year, it was a year of shedding, it was a year of endings because we had to dip back into and finalize these last few degrees, this last few pieces of whatever signs that we were previously in. So um, oh my gosh, Taurus and Aries. So these were no, Aries is where we're going. So Pisces, Taurus. I feel like I'm missing something, but that's okay. That is okay. Yeah, Uranus, Jupiter stayed in Cancer. So okay, so now in 2026, these signs, these planets are now officially moving into the signs for the duration of their stay. So we have Venus. We're just going to start. Okay. Venus is going to go retrograde in October. And it's going to go retrograde in Libra, where it rules. So this is really going to be internalizing again, like Libra, Venus's values. I've been saying it for so long, like really, really get clear on your values, what you stand for. And that will really help you as we navigate this really fast energy that's going to be 2026, so that we have this like guidepost, I guess, of like, these are my values. If it doesn't filter through these values, it's not for me, right? So getting really, really clear on that, I think, is so important, especially when Venus stations retrograde in October in Libra, where it rules. This is very much about aesthetics. Venus in Libra is more like refined, whereas Venus in Taurus is like raw, sensual sort of energy. Venus in Libra is like, it's about art, it's about aesthetics, it is about our values, but it's like, how can I initiate? It's almost like initiating a movement through art, right? That's kind of that energy. And in Mercury is going to be stationing retrograde in okay, hold on. I think I'm looking at something incorrectly here. Let me just see. Venus, yeah, retrograde in October. Mercury's going to go retrograde February in Pisces. It's also going to go retrograde June in Cancer, and then it's going to retrograde again in October in Scorpio. So specifically to the themes that came up during Scorpio are going to be huge. That's so really reflecting what came up. Mars is not going to be retrograding this year. Okay, let's get to the outer planets. So Jupiter is, so this is like really going to be a really great year for Leo rising. So Leo in general, but Leo risings, because Jupiter is going to move into Leo on the 30th, June 30th. This is our first house. So it's been going through the 12th house, which is really asking us to surrender. It's really this really deep sort of work for us, this work that we can't quite see clearly. Like 12th house and Pisces energy, we can't always see it so clearly until we're out of it. And so it's going to be going to Leo in June. June 30th, it's going to be moving into Leo, which is going to be so amazing, beautiful for Leo risings. Of course, it always depends on your individual chart. So if you want to be tracking all these transits as we go in real time next year, join Astro Design School. It's going to be amazing. And we're going to really be able to layer this onto your chart and like how it's really going to show up for you. Neptune is going back into Aries January 26th, and then Saturn will be there February 13th, and they will be at 0 degrees of Aries for the first time in a long, long time. So again, this is really fast energy. This is really forward movement. This is like, people keep talking about like timeline jumping. And I can't remember, I think it was Jana Romer who was saying that like quantum leaping isn't what we think it is. It's not just like this, I'm leaping into a new timeline. And like, it's in these little micro moments that we get to choose and we get to shift our timeline. So it's like, we're kind of like, I just have this visual of just like jumping from one like stone to another. They're close together and they don't seem like much, but then you turn around and you realize like, whoa, like you've done a lot of work, right? And so that forward movement of like Aries, because a lot next year is going to be with fire signs, right? Jupiter's moving into Leo, Neptune and Saturn are going to be in Aries. This is forward movement. Again, that spiritual warrior energy, really noticing what happened or what came up like spring, summer of this past year around those themes. Uranus on April 25th, thank goodness for all of you fixed signs, will officially be in Gemini for the duration for the next 8 years or so. That's where it will be, and it is all good. I mean, anywhere that Uranus is, right? Uranus Uranus rules Aquarius, so it rules an air sign. So it might be a little bit more comfortable here, but this is like our communication. This is journalism. This is news. This is social media. We're going to be seeing something new. We're going to be seeing something from new. Like our perspective, the way that we view things is going to radically shift with Uranus being in Gemini. So really like noticing what's coming up around that. The nodes are also switching next year. So July, the North Node will move into Aquarius. The South Node will be moving into Leo, where Jupiter is going to be moving through. This is really going to be highlighting where we find comfort, things that we need to leave in the past, and where we need to move forward. Chiron is also going to be moving into Taurus in June, leaving Aries, but it will be going back into Aries in September. It's going to be dipping back into Aries. And again, this is just like really, it feels like 2025 started this. I mean, it's been starting since before that, but 2025 sort of initiated this energy, but then dipped back, right? It was like this quickness and this slowness. And we had to like do a lot of the inner work. We had to do a lot of shedding. I mean, next year is also the year of the horse. And so there's movement to it, right? It's also a 1 year. So it's beginnings. It's like really potent energy. And so just really being able to, get so clear on your values, get really grounded in yourself, and like coming into that work, because everything that you've laid the foundation for over the past few years, but specifically this year, right? Like what left your life, what's coming into your life, what needs to change, what are you choosing? Like at the end of this year, have realized like I need to get so much more disciplined in more than just my meditation, right? In other areas of my life and what I'm eating and how I show up in my business, like really getting structured and organized because I can see where my shadows are. I can see where I self-sabotage. I can see where I hold myself back because it's been very loud this past year. Like it's the energy that's like, you can't go forward. You can't press go until you move through this. And so that's what I'm focusing on. That's what I'm moving through. And we all have something, whether it's career, whether it's finances, whether it's relationships, whether it's whatever, right? That we have this like theme of that we're moving through. So for whatever that is, that's been coming up, like doing the work to come through that. And yeah, it's going to be fast. It's going to be, and I was on a podcast recently and she asked me, the energy of next year, like, what do I feel like it's going to be? And yes, it's going to be fast. And also, what is the foundation you've been setting? Because what I'm seeing too is we're all seeing it. There's this divide. And when we think about like quantum leaping and like timeline shifts and things like that, there is this divide that's happening, right? There's one side that's, maybe the shadowy side of technology and the news and social media and things like that, and then there's other side that's really wanting to awaken, and so many more people are awakening and having those conversations. And so Pam Gregory talks about it. She's like, what basket are you going to put your eggs in, the basket of love or the basket of fear? Because we have a choice. We're not going to get it right in every single moment, but overall, what are you choosing? What energy are you choosing? Because we know in manifestation and all of this work, your frequency, what you're putting out is what you're getting back. If you view the world from this lens of just like, oh my gosh, like nothing's working, or like whatever, like just this negative place, that's what you're going to draw in. But if we can find a way to shift that and to be more positive and optimistic, and it's not to bypass and it's not to ignore the shit that's happening. Like, no, be with it. That's one thing I've learned so hard this year. Be with all parts of myself. Be with the shadows, accept the shadows, see the shadows. I don't always like the shadows. I don't like parts of me sometimes. Like there are definitely pieces to me that I picked up all these limiting beliefs and was conditioned to believe something about myself that wasn't even true, right? But if I can sit with that, I actually put on my phone, I don't know if you can, if you're on YouTube or whatever, you can see it, but I put a baby picture of myself because I want to be looking at that and just being like, the critic that is in my mind talking down upon myself is talking about her, right? And she didn't do anything to deserve this, right? So we're healing so many parts of ourselves. And so, yeah, we're going to get into it again. Next week, I'm doing an interview. I'm being interviewed on, but we're going to cross post it so that you'll get a little bit more in depth of 2026 here as well. If you're listening to this on Christmas, I thank you so much. If you celebrate Christmas, Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, all the things. And I will be back next week with oh my gosh, I can't believe January forecast already. It's so crazy. It's almost January. But again, ground in, join us in Astro Design School. The link is down below. All the information you need. Follow me on Instagram at Rochelle.Christian. TikTok is the same. Substack is the same. YouTube, it's all Rochelle Christian, ROCHELLE.CHRISTIANE. My Stan store is also Rochelle Christian. So all the ways that you can find me, connect with me, leave a review if you value the podcast, rate, review, subscribe, of course, Spotify, click those 5 stars. That's it. And I thank you so much.